Coming up on our newscast tonight. President Moon Jae-in continues welcoming distinguished figures ahead of the PyeongChang Olympics. The highlight of today's series of summits is a dinner with U.S. Vice President Mike Pence. North Korea holds a military parade just a day before the PyeongChang Winter Olympics begin. Observers note, however, it is smaller in scale compared to past similar events. Ahead of the opening ceremony of the PyeongChang 2018 Games, North Korea's Sanctions Orchestra is ready to perform before a full house. And already, the heat of the Games is on for some Olympians as they face qualification rounds. NEWSCENTER begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea. Time for Arirang News Center. Live from our studio in Seoul, I'm Daniel Choi. Welcome to our program. Our starting point is, of course, the Olympics. PyeongChang and the sub-host city of Gangneung are charged up with the enthusiasm and intensity of athletes the world over. Even though it's tomorrow when the curtain rises with the opening ceremony for this century's first Olympics in Korea, the qualifiers for a number of events have already begun. To get into the thick of the action, we connect to our Ji-won at the Gangneung Curling Center. Ji-won, do fill us in on the early bird competitions that are already heating up.
Hi, Daniel. The first actual competition at the 2018 PyeongChang Winter Olympics started this morning with 4 round-robin preliminaries of the mixed doubles curling. And over the next 4 days, 8 countries will compete to qualify for the medal round. And the second rounds of the preliminaries just started at 8 p.m. South Korea is taking on China, and we'll find out the results shortly around 9:30. And as for the morning game, Team Korea grabbed its first win against Finland, along with the U.S., Norway, and Switzerland. But mixed doubles in curling is new at the Olympics this year, so we're still unsure who's likely to be standing on the medal podium in the coming days. There's also ski jumping starting in about an hour and a half. Qualification for the men's individual normal hill will be held at the Alpensia Ski Jumping Center in PyeongChang.
Well, Ji-won, it's good to see you bundled up right now. We've been experiencing a bone-chilling cold snap in recent days. The mercury must have dipped even further down in the mountains, but the venues are heating up with excitement, as we mentioned. Plus, we do have some welcome news for spectators of outdoor events, right?
Daniel, it was freezing cold earlier this week, and it's still quite cold now that the sun is down. But starting yesterday, the temperature has improved a lot, thankfully. And despite today being a weekday, a lot of people came to watch the games and cheer for their team. Now, I was able to talk to some of the spectators. Let's have a look.
Curling isn't a game you see often, so I thought it'd be a great chance to watch it in person. Also, it's the first event of the long-awaited PyeongChang Olympics. Watching it was thrilling, and it made me feel that the Olympics have really started.
It was really cool to watch the athletes compete. We were really happy that we won the first match. I don't know much about curling, but it was really intense and the atmosphere was really great, so I had a lot of fun.
The Olympic buzz is felt not just here in the Gangneung Curling Center, but in the PyeongChang and Gangneung Olympic villages as well, as the last rounds of team welcome ceremonies for athletes were held, including those for North Korea, Greece, and Sweden. The Olympic torch relay also pumped up the atmosphere as it lit up its second last destination, Gangneung, today. The torch was taken around different parts of the city and its major tourist attractions before it's finally brought to PyeongChang and the Olympic Plaza for Friday's opening ceremony. That's all from me for now. Back to you, Daniel.
All right, Ji-won, thank you for being out there for us. We appreciate it. Meanwhile, President Moon Jae-in's flurry of Olympic diplomacy continues. The Liberal leader hosted meetings with several high-ranking foreign guests today. Hwang Ho-jun has the latest from the top office.
Just the day before the opening of the long-awaited PyeongChang Winter Olympics, President Moon's schedule is jam-packed. Earlier in the afternoon, President Moon met with Han Zheng, a member of the Politburo Standing Committee of the Communist Party of China. Han is the 7th highest official in the party and is visiting South Korea as a special envoy for Chinese President Xi Jinping. During that meeting, President Moon noted that this year is the 10th anniversary of Seoul and Beijing establishing a strategic partnership. He called for joint efforts to make this year the start of a more mature partnership.
President Moon said the relationship between Korea and China shouldn't be limited to economy and trade, but must be extended to the areas of politics and security so that the bilateral relationship can develop without being swayed by various conflicts.
President Moon's meeting with Han-jung was followed shortly by a summit meeting with Polish President Andrzej Duda. Earlier in the day, President Moon met with his Swiss counterpart Alain Berset and discussed how the two countries can work together to make sure the PyeongChang Winter Olympics will contribute to peace on the peninsula and in the world, as well as to boost their bilateral relations for cooperation in areas such as basic science and medicine. The South Korean leader also held talks with German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier over ways to end North Korea's nuclear ambitions in a peaceful manner. President Moon highlighted expectations that what's being called the Peace Olympics could improve inter-Korean relations and said that the circumstances of this year's games make the German president's visit even more significant as he is the head of a nation that overcame division peacefully. This was the two presidents' second meeting since they first met in Berlin during President Moon's visit to Germany for the G20 summit. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
At the presidential office, a South Korean leader hosted U.S. Vice President Mike Pence on the first of his three-day stay in the nation for the Winter Olympic Games, of course. Our Blue House correspondent Moon Gangneung is live on the phone with us. Gangneung, what's the latest?
Well, Daniel, I'm going to have to correct you on that. He is hosting the U.S. Vice President Mike Pence and his wife at the Blue House as we speak. Of course, this closing a day of back-to-back summits with world leaders visiting the nation for the 2018 Winter Olympic Games in PyeongChang, which, of course, kicks off tomorrow. Now, Vice President Pence landed in the Osan Air Base just a few hours ago, and the trip here to the Blue House is the very first on his list of to-dos during his three-day stay here in the nation. South Korea's first couple hosting a Blue House dinner for Mr. and Mrs. Pence now, but during President Moon and Vice President Pence's one-on-one early in the evening, the South Korean leader acknowledged Washington's contribution in engaging North Korea in the Winter Olympics here, as well as inter-Korean talks by firmly sticking to its principles and close coordination with the South. The U.S. VP stressed that to President Moon and to the South Korean people that the U.S. will stand shoulder to shoulder with its ally South Korea and work together towards a permanent and irreversible denuclearization of North Korea.
And Gangneung, we're also hearing that one of the topics discussed by the two leaders should be and would be the North Korean leader's influential sister Kim Yo-jong visiting South Korea.
Absolutely. There is no doubt that topping the discussions, even throughout dinner, will be the surprise visit by the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's only sibling in the media spotlight, Kim Yo-jong. She'll be traveling to the south as part of the North high-level delegation led by its ceremonial head of state, Kim Young-nam. The presidential Blue House announced earlier today that Kim Young-nam will be attending the leaders' reception hosted by President Moon tomorrow before the opening ceremony of the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. Kim Yo-jong will not be, but that South Korean President will meet with the North Korean delegation, including Kim Yo-jong, as they have lunch on Saturday. The delegation arrives in South Korea tomorrow afternoon, and we are sure that all eyes around the world will be fixed on the younger Kim as she becomes the first of North Korea's Kim family to step on South Korean soil. Daniel?
All right, Gangneung, thank you for those updates. We appreciate it. Now, it's official, as Gangneung just informed us and updated us on. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's younger sister will be flying to Seoul using a private jet for a three-day visit. Ji Myung-gil delves deeper into the significance of the first visit to South Korea by a member of the regime's ruling family.
Kim Yo-jong, the younger sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, is expected to arrive in South Korea on Friday afternoon. She will be the first member of the North ruling Kim family to ever set foot on South Korean soil. The prominent figure is scheduled to arrive at Incheon International Airport at 1:30 p.m. on a private jet flying directly from Pyongyang. Kim Jong-un's influential sister will be accompanied by 3 other top officials, and the plane is expected to return to Pyongyang as soon as the passengers disembark. The jet will come back on the evening of February 11th to take the high-level delegation back home. Kim Yo-jong is expected to head to PyeongChang to attend the opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics. The 30-year-old Kim, who has seen her profile rise steadily since 2014, was promoted to North Korea's Politburo last year. However, according to North Korea experts, Kim Yo-jong's sudden inclusion in the North Korean high-level delegation may have irritated the United States, which has sent its own delegation led by Vice President Mike Pence to counter North Korea's charm offensive. Last year, the U.S. Treasury Department included Kim Yo-jong on its list of blacklisted officials. Seoul's Unification Ministry says it believes that Kim Yo-jong's visit is a reflection of the regime's willingness to ease tensions on the Korean peninsula, along with a message of celebration for the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
The United Nations is set to grant a North Korean official exemption from sanctions for the Winter Olympics. The request to lift the travel ban comes from Seoul, describing it as an opportunity to reduce tensions in the region. Kwon Jang-ho has the details.
The head of the UN Committee on North Korean Sanctions has called on members of the Security Council to approve an exemption for Chae-hui, a senior North Korean official for the PyeongChang Olympics, at Seoul's request. Ambassador Karel van Oosterom of the Netherlands, who chairs the meeting, has sent a letter for approval to all the members, which will be granted if there are no objections by Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Chair is the chairman of Pyongyang's National Sports Guidance Committee, but has also headed the regime's propaganda department previously. He's been on the UN sanctions blacklist since June last year, which imposed a travel ban and froze his assets. The official was included in North Korea's Olympic delegation list provided by Pyongyang on Tuesday. Seoul formally requested that the UN allow all members of the proposed delegation to come, saying that it will, quote, serve as a timely opportunity to reduce tensions on the Korean peninsula and beyond. However, this request comes at a time when the international community's main policy on the regime is pressure and sanctions, and with North Korea showing no interest in giving up its nuclear program yet. The move to lift sanctions on Chae opens up the Moon administration to criticism of pandering to Pyongyang, but the potential outcomes mean it's a risk Seoul is willing to take.
If, through these efforts, steps are made toward North Korea's denuclearization or leading to lasting peace on the peninsula, then for the Moon administration, it will be worth it. How they are judged will depend on the gains they make after PyeongChang.
If the expected green light is given, Chae will join other officials in the delegation that will arrive in South Korea on Friday. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
North Korea forged ahead with a military parade this morning, and footage of the parade was revealed this evening. Unlike in the past, the regime remained relatively quiet, choosing not to broadcast it live. The scale of the event has also been reduced. Woo Jung-hee files us this report.
On the eve of the opening day of the PyeongChang Winter Olympics, North Korea went ahead with a military parade to commemorate its Military Foundation Day. The parade, however, was smaller in scale than usual. Nevertheless, Pyongyang took it as an opportunity to showcase its key weapons and missiles. The Pukguksong-2 missile, an intermediate-range ballistic missile using solid fuel engine, was revealed. Following were the Hwasong-12, Hwasong-14, and the Hwasong-15, an intercontinental ballistic missile which can fly over 13,000 kilometers, putting the whole continental United States within reach. But new types of ICBMs or SLBMs like Hwasong-13 or Pukguksong-3 were not revealed. Pyongyang's military parade took place for roughly 1 hour and 30 minutes, just half the time of the previous one in April last year. And unlike in the past, the parade was not broadcasted live. Instead, the regime released the recorded and edited footage of the parade roughly 5 hours after it ended. Moreover, no foreign press was present at the event. Such downscaled parade follows Pyongyang's declaration that it completed its nuclear weapons program, thus achieving nuclear statehood. Speculations are that the regime is paying more attention to the international community's response and to the PyeongChang Winter Olympics atmosphere down in South Korea, where on top of its athletes and cheerleaders, a high-level delegation that includes Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong, will be visiting. Woo Jung-hee, Arirang News.
Just last week, the government gave out free tickets to the performances by North Korea's Sanctions Orchestra. The troupe began its first performance in Gangneung ahead of the start to the Winter Olympics. Cha Sang-mi provides a glimpse of what to expect.
As part of the countdown to the Winter Olympics opening ceremony in South Korea, North Korea's Sanctions Orchestra are performing in Gangneung on Thursday night. The performance began at 8 p.m. and runs for 90 minutes. It is the first North Korean performance in South Korea since August 2002, when Pyongyang sent 30 singers and dancers to Seoul for a joint event. Tickets for the performance were handed out at the venue to invited guests and to those chosen through an online raffle. About a dozen South Korean citizens were seen outside the Arts Center, waving a flag showing the Korean peninsula and shouting, "We are one," to cheer on the troupe members. In preparation for the first performance at Gangneung Arts Center, the 140-member art troupe showed up at 9:30 Thursday morning to start rehearsals. During the previous day's rehearsals, the orchestra is said to have included some popular South Korean pop songs in its set list, as well as classical numbers like Beethoven and Tchaikovsky. The orchestra is at the back of the stage, leaving room for singing and dancing performances at the front. The Sanctions Band is in a way an experimental group, as it is made up of the top members from around 6 North Korean bands. Once the group wraps up its performance in Gangneung, it will make its way to Seoul to prepare for its second performance this coming Sunday, February 11th, before heading back to North Korea. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
UN Chief Antonio Guterres urged all participating countries to observe the Olympic Truce during the Winter Games. Pope Francis also said the traditional truce has a special significance this year. Park Ji-won shares with us their remarks.
In his message this week, the UN Secretary General said all the world gathered in PyeongChang will be united by the Olympic spirit of solidarity, mutual respect, and friendly competition. He said the ideal of transcending political differences for common humanity has even more resonance on the Korean peninsula, adding that the Olympics represents the best of the world's athletic achievements and the best of humanity. He called on all nations to honor the Olympic Truce, which dates back to ancient Greece. Last November, the UN General Assembly also adopted a resolution urging all member states to observe the truce throughout the period from the 7th day before the start of the Olympics until the 7th day until the end of the Paralympics. Meanwhile, Pope Francis sent his greetings to the IOC and to athletes and participants of the Winter Olympic Games in PyeongChang. He said the traditional Olympic truce has special importance this year as the national teams of both Koreas will not only parade under a united flag, but will compete as one team in women's ice hockey.
This allows for hope for a world where conflicts can be resolved peacefully through dialogue and reciprocal respect, as sport teaches us to do.
He added that he will send his prayers so that the Olympics will be a great feast of friendship and sport for all. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
The South Korean government announced plans to further boost the country's semiconductor and display industries. It involves close cooperation with the private sector as well as greater investment. Kim Hye-sung introduces to us the new measure.
It's called the GAP5 strategy. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy announced its plan to maintain its 5-year lead in the semiconductor and display industries against followers like China through new technology development. For chips, the plan is to raise efficiency and speed by 1,000-fold through research into new materials that exceed nano-level processing technology. In the display sector, the ministry plans to develop flexible panels with more than 20% pliability. The goal is to create new markets, double Korea's market share in system chips from the current 3% range to 6% by 2022, and triple OLED exports to over $25 billion in 5 years. While Korea leads the world in chip and display exports, it still imports a considerable amount of equipment and materials from countries like the US and Japan. The second part of the GAP5 strategy aims to narrow this gap against Korea's competitors in equipment and materials in less than 5 years through localization. The ministry said it'll invest 2 trillion won or $1.8 billion to small and mid-sized firms over the course of 5 years and raise the level of localization. The government also signed MOUs with Korean conglomerates like Samsung Electronics, SK Hynix, and LG Display on Thursday, in which the companies will invest up to $74 billion to nurture talent, invest, and create new jobs in semiconductors and chips. A huge plan with ambitious goals, the ministry said it will fine-tune the specific details so it can launch the project by this year. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Turning to some stock market action now, trading was stopped temporarily today on Korea's junior stock index after jumping more than 4%. The Korea Exchange said that as of around 2:44 p.m., the KOSDAQ 150 went up 3% and March futures on the index climbed 6%. The so-called sidecar kicks in to automatically suspend trading for 5 minutes in case of a sudden big fluctuation. This was the second time the system had been activated this year after a jump in the tech-heavy index last month. After peaking at a high of 867, the KOSDAQ closed today at just under 862 for a gain of 3.9%. The Games in PyeongChang will be the biggest Winter Olympics in history in terms of the number of athletes and countries participating. There are 15 snow, ice, and sliding events, and that means a lot of exciting showdowns between the world's top winter sports rivals. Won Jong-hwan brings to light the key matchups and stars to watch out for.
First off, women's ice hockey will see an intense match between two big rivals. The United States, who are number 1 in the world, are looking to make a comeback against their northern neighbors, second-ranked Canada, on February 15th. In men's hockey this time around, professional players are out due to a decision by the NHL, so it will be the women's teams getting the attention. The Canadian women have won the gold medal in 4 straight Olympics since 2002, while the US has won 7 of the last 8 World Championships. In skeleton, meanwhile, Korea has a chance to win its first medal in that event. The first Korean skeleton slider to finish on top of the podium at international events, Yoon Sung-bin, could be on the road to gold in his home country on February 16th. He's the current world number 1, having won 5 golds and 2 silvers this season. But he'll have a tough competitor in 33-year-old Martins Dukrus from Latvia, who has more experience. Dukrus has won the World Championship 5 times plus 2 silver medals at the Olympics. South Korean speed skater Lee Sang-hwa has twice won Olympic gold in the women's 500-meter race, and she's ready to add another in PyeongChang. Just last week in Germany, she set a new personal best, but she could have a strong challenger in Japan's sprint queen, Naoko Daira, who's won the 500-meter in all 7 of the most recent international tournaments. Their final race will be at the Gangneung Orval Stadium in February 18th. Finally, there's the glitz and glamour of figure skating, which will be a true spectacle at the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. Nearly 150 of the world's best figure skaters will be competing in 5 events, eager for the chance to call themselves Olympic champions. In ice dance, there are 2 teams, France and Canada, who could end up neck and neck for gold. French duo Papadakis and Cizeron won their 4th consecutive European title last month with a new world record, while Canada's Virtue and Moyer, who paired up in 1997 and have won Olympic gold before, are looking to cap their career with first-place finish at PyeongChang. The Canadians will face off with the young French team at the Gangneung Ice Arena on February 20th. Won Jong-hwan, Arirang News.
Time to turn to Michelle Bach at the Weather Center for the updates you need. Michelle, without that freezing wind, the weather wasn't too bad today.
Well, Daniel, finally, in 6 days with no wind chill, we are feeling close to the actual readings. Tomorrow, the official start of the Winter Olympics is expected to be milder, even above the seasonal average here in Seoul for the highs. Now, luckily, the weather in PyeongChang is improving as well. However, during the opening ceremony at 8 p.m., the wind chill will make it feel close to -10 degrees Celsius. Friday morning's temperatures are also expected to be higher than today, but it'll still be below 0 degrees. Seoul starts today at -5 degrees Celsius, Daegu at -3, while Busan is at just 3 degrees. Seoul will see cloudy conditions later on, with the temperatures rising up to 5 degrees for Seoul. Gwangju and Busan will both reach up to 10 degrees. Now, the cold wave alerts have been lifted, but the dry weather alerts are spreading across the whole nation. On Sunday, the morning low is expected to drop again under the cloudy skies. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for you in tonight's edition of Arirang News Center. As always, thank you for watching.